Counselor Smith?
Here.
And Counselor Harden?
Here.
All right, so you holding on to a quorum there.
Yeah. we'll hold to a quorum.
I would make a motion to dispense with the reading and approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Counselor Smith, second by Counselor Harden. Any other questions, comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed by the same sign. It passes 3-0. While we're waiting on Mr. Burgett to get here, we'll take a couple of these. We'll just go down the line here. 2504-17, request for consideration of 18th Street revitalization project. I've been told by Cale this is our last item. Forwarded all that out to everybody. And as you know, I don't like change orders, but Cale, if you want to give us a report on this.
So we have three things, I think, Melanie. The third thing is what you sent me earlier, but we'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
The first one is a supplemental agreement to GMC's original contract from 217-803-84 to 254-429-03.
You tell me what that new revised amount is?
254-429-03.
Okay, thanks.
There you go. Thanks, Brian. Which is a change of $36,625.19, and ALDOT covers 80% of that, so Homewood would be on the hook for about $7,325.
And do we know, well, like, what's the reason for the $36,000?
Yeah, Keith, you would.
Be glad to. The project obviously just lasted longer than we expected.
Yeah.
Of course, our inspector was out there on an hourly rate every time, even during that stretch where we had utility delays, we were still on the project. So ALDOT agrees that the 15% of construction cost is reasonable. They usually start projects out at 12%, which was what the 217.8 is. With the caveat that if you need that additional 3%, come to us at the end of the job and we can probably approve it. So this is us going to them asking for that final 3%.
So I guess I didn't include that in my vision. Is that what you're saying?
Nope, we don't need that.
We don't need that.
Any other questions?
But are we gonna do these have to be separate motions, or can we approve them all as a?
You really need separate.
We need separate
Yeah,
resolutions for them?
separate.
Okay.
They'll need to be
All right, so we need to
separate.
take this one alone,
Separate.
okay.
Yeah.
Then I would make a motion to approve the change order from the original cost of 217-803-84 to the increased price of 254-429.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Smith, second by Mr. Harden. And then we have a line item for this.
We do, and we have money budgeted for this.
For this eventually.
Okay.
What is it?
It's 2611. I'll send it to Mr. Kendrick.
581724.
There you go.
2611 dash what?
581724. 18th Street West.
I sent you one too, because we are going to need a budget amendment in a minute too with it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any other questions on that item? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed with the same sign. That's 3-0. That passes. Okay. And what's the next? This is Bulls Construction.
Yeah, the next is a change order for the contractor, Bulls Construction, and the total amount, net amount of $375,738.38, which is this number down here. If we go back up to that big number on the right, the $323,1938, that's the Birmingham traffic signal pole installation.
They're reimbursing us.
That's right.
We don't know when, but we know they claim it.
So this committee moved out last time, I think, IGA with them, intergovernmental agreement. And so all that's in place. And this is the change order to put the money in place.
Does the IGA dictate the timing? Is that all included in that? I don't know.
I don't
think we
remember.
saw this.
What?
Does it say, does the IGA that we have with Birmingham, does it dictate the timing for when they have to pay us? No, it just says they will at some point in the future. Okay.
Yeah.
Is this change order number what?
This is number 3.
All right, and I think in the email that we we got, it said the ultimate, when it came down to it, after their reimbursement and Aldot's portion of the payment, I think for Homewood, it's like a $10,000, is that right?
No, we get reimbursed 100% for the Birmingham portion, which is 323. And then the rest, oh yeah, you're right, I'm sorry. The rest of it is
Yeah.
52,719, and Homewood would be on the hook for 10,000.
Right, and Aldot
That's
pays the
correct,
rest. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
How that pays the rest. And the rest, so the rest of these items are for, there, in the original plans, I think there was, a price for loop wire conduit,
For the
for signals,
signals?
right. And we'd prefer, it'd be a better product if we could go with video detection system, so that's included in here.
Oh,
Especially
that's what it said about cameras.
the cameras, that's right, in 2 locations. So that's what these are. And then there's a little bit of stone and remote from the ballot, right turn lane. So that's what the other ones are.
All right, well.
These are not speed, these are just traffic,
Just-
observation cameras on the electric.
Right, they're not speed. They're not
Detection.
radar.
So like when you pull up, it knows you're there.
Instead of having the loop on the sidewalk
right.
and the concrete,
Right.
instead,
Exactly.
she sees you on camera and that changes the lights. Okay.
When you're in Tesla, it tells you if it's red or green.
There you go.
Okay.
I've never been in one, Walter, I don't know.
Fancy Tesla.
That's what you drive. Okay, so that's change order number 3.
Okay, I would make a motion to approve, the change order for Bulls Construction.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mrs. Smith, second by Mr. Carter. Change order number 3.
And is there a third resolution that needs to go for the budget amendment for the polls? For what you said? For
Or
what
is
you
that
said
included
earlier?
in-
I thought that was the 375.
That's the 323/19.
So can't you do it in the same change order resolution? No.
Or do you need a separate thing for the budget
Do
amendment?
budget amendment and change order resolution?
That's what I was gonna say, because I don't think, we didn't have any other budget amendments to make this time, so that's why I was gonna see if they needed to, on the same one to do, if they could just put that as part of the approved change
Okay,
order.
so I'm making a motion to approve the change order and the budget amendment that
Correct.
will make the change order possible.
Okay.
You accept that second?
Yes, second.
Okay. No one else? Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign, that passes 3-0.
We're basically just putting money over from Birmingham as an intergovernmental contribution, and then add an expense side so that we can net it.
Okay.
All right. Okay, Keith, you're dismissed. And
You're
I'm not gonna see
dismissed.
you again.
Yes.
I'm not gonna
No
see you
more
again
money.
next week.
Not on this.
Right on money.
Thank you for your help with all the single audit, because we
Yeah, no
barely
problem.
made it on the deadline, but thank you.
Glad to help.
That's all your hard work and helping us is right. Yeah,
I'm just
you're
glad we
involved
put in
in
love grass. I'm feeling sure.
Feeling
All right.
slippery.
I get lots of people telling me how good it was.
All right.
Sorry, I had a lot of issues about the board
Okay,
claim,
so we
but
take care of
you know, I'm
25
desperate, I'm
17.
desperate. When you're about to board a claim, I'm sorry.
I guess we'll,
I'm desperate, I'm
next
desperate.
time, we'll drop this. Let's just make sure
Everything.
everything.
Yeah.
All right, see you later.
Well, I mean, I was like, do we need to keep it on until they
Let's
get those
keep it on
balls
one more
installed?
time, just to make sure.
When is the bid opening gonna happen now? Tomorrow?
7:25.
Oh, I don't know.
We're not to that item yet.
Yeah, I was about to say, I didn't know it
Okay.
didn't happen.
Order 050423, bid date set for July 18th at 2 p.m. for City Hall parking deck repair and restoration. That was postponed until tomorrow at 2 p.m. So that, just a report out, we'll carry this over pending that updated bid opening date, and we will report that out. at the next-
Do I do need to
the
just put
next
something on the website about that being
No,
postponed?
it's already been published.
It has, okay.
Okay, so, any questions? Okay, we'll carry that over without objection. You were here for the audit. Why don't we-
Correct.
Why don't we take up 010723, request to accept the FY 21-22 audit from DMSS. We have Jenny here.
We have,
Yes, this is Stephen Von Hagel. Stephen, you want to stand up and
Hey,
wave
Stephen.
to everyone? Can you tell them a little bit about yourself?
he's an Alabama graduate.
He's like, Jenny, are you kidding me? I asked if I was supposed to speak.
I'm here to support you.
And he went, he's the Alabama fan and graduate too.
Yeah,
Very good. Okay,
yeah,
very
Stephen
good.
Von Hagel is one of our members with our firm, and he is in our assurance, department, and, he is a sounding board for me in many different areas, this being one of them. So he came out to support tonight, and we appreciate, the opportunity to be able to do the city's audit. We know you could, make a different decision, and we really do appreciate it.
And we have Counselor Waltman, who's here.
Okay.
Who is now in attendance. So-
He's probably like, oh, great, I thought I missed the audit.
All right, so the floor is yours.
Okay, I'm Jenny Graham, a senior manager with BMSS. I work in our governmental and municipalities industry for our assurance department. And I'm here just to kind of go over the highlights of the audit. And as Melody was kind of giving you a debrief before the meeting, like I could go through this page by page, but I'll spare y'all.
She and I'll do it tonight.
Yeah, that's right, that's right.
Or maybe Friday night.
That's right. So, we came out to do the fiscal year 2022 audit. We got started a little bit later this year because there was kind of a lot going on with construction projects, kind of carrying over from the bond borrowings, and wanted to make sure that kind of everything came in on that front. But we came out in March and did our audit procedures. And you'll see that you have two booklets this year. You've got a big thick one. This is your audit of the financial statements, and then a smaller one that's your single audit, which pertains to your federal grants. And so in the big booklet, one of the things that we always kind of mention is there's really only one thing in this booklet that belongs to BMSS, and that's the independent auditor's report. And we did have an unmodified opinion on the financial statements for the city of Homewood for fiscal year 2022, meaning we didn't find any areas that we considered to be materially misstated based on the information that was provided to us during the audit. So that starts us off on page 4, and it doesn't have a number at the bottom, but it's got our letterhead at the top. So that's an unmodified opinion there. And then you'll go over, and there's some pages that face each other, starting at page 7 and 8. This is the management's discussion and analysis. So what this is, we basically, once the financial statements are done and we've got our report ready, we have management sit down and kind of go through the numbers and compile them in total and go over kind of some highlights. So you'll see on page 7, this is a really good place if you're just trying to get the Cliff's Notes for the financial statements, is to start on page 7 because it'll kind of give you the highlights of where you started and where you ended up. And that goes from page 7 through page, I believe, 12. No, of course I'm wrong. Through page 14. And it will also, after the highlights that are kind of gone over for fiscal year 21 versus 22, focusing on 22, there's sort of some projections based on what y'all have done in planning for 2023, which I know now that seems like, oh, well, we're almost starting to plan for 2024. So I would encourage you, if you're trying to get like just the meat of the financial statements, to read those pages 7 through 14. On page 15, you come to the government-wide financial statements, and these are presented to show what the total position of the government is. And you may be wondering, like, what's the difference in the total position versus these statements that you see over on page 18. Well, okay, so total government, that operates on a different focus than your everyday financial statements, which is what you guys are used to operating with. So the statements on page 15 are going to show your total assets, like net assets, capital assets, and it's also going to show your long-term liabilities, where on page 18 it will not. And so really kind of our focus when we kind of go over everything is to look at the fund statements, which start on page 18, because that's what you guys are used to operating in, and it's what you're used to making decisions with. So for the total funds for the year, the total assets of the city for all governmental funds was $104.7 million. The total liabilities was $11.9 million. There were deferred inflows of resources, which is related to revenue that was earned but not yet received in the fiscal year, so it can't be spent. So that goes into the deferred inflows of resources. and that pertains to property tax mostly. And then total fund balance for the year was $67.9 million. And as you'll notice, the general fund had a total fund balance of $29.9 million, of which 15.1 was unassigned, which means it can be used for anything. Then you'll go over to page 20, and that's going to be your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. And as you see, like if you look, okay, so this is where you show your total revenues for the year. Obviously 86.7 in total revenues, and then your total expenditures were 68.1 million. There are transfers between funds, but when you look at them on here, they zero out at the total, because when you move the money back and forth, obviously it's going to zero out at the end. But there's also payments to the board of 20.8 million, and that obviously is impacted by how much tax revenue you bring in. But the total net change in fund balance was a decrease of 728,000, and that's mostly related to the GOW construction fund, because at this level, when you're spending money out for those projects, it shows up as an expenditure for capital outlay. But the overall change in fund balance for the general fund was 290 increase, a $290,000 increase.
Yeah.
Okay, so on page 22 start the notes to the financial statements. If there's any financial statement line item that you have a question about, it's going to be further defined here. Like if you're like, okay, accounts receivable, what makes up our accounts receivable? Our capital assets, what it says to, you know, 200 million, but what does that really include? So that's going to be broken out in your notes to the financial statements. And the only new note that we really put in here this year for new accounting policy was GASB 87, which was a lease implementation standard that the city was required to implement. And basically, you know, I guess some companies were, they were renting equipment, either renting it to other people, or they were renting a lot of equipment so that it made their balance sheet look better, because then they didn't have to show debt because they were renting everything. And so standards were like, well, if you're going to sign a lease saying that you're renting a building for 20 years and it's going to cost you $100,000 a year, that needs to be reflected in the balance sheet somewhere. So if FASB implements it, GASB considers it, they put it in. So we had to look at anything that the city rents, which was not, it was the things that, like a copy or something like that, that's, you know, really not encompassed in it because it's not the value
But then at the
of a
last minute,
building.
it was for a curve because we forgot about the same.
But then we also have the lease, that, we had to consider that,
The pocket park.
the pocket
The
park.
land is actually, we lease it from them.
Right, yeah.
We had to consider that, we had to consider cell phone tower leases, if you've got a tower lease that, you know, is to extend for 30 years for, you know, however many $1,000s a year. So we did have to put a note in here about that. So but that was really the only change in
And that's
accounting
one of those that, like, at
policy.
the end of the last minute, I kept thinking, you're gonna kill me, but I forgot the pocket park is.
She would send one, I'm like, got it, send one, got it. So we,
I was saying copiers, that's the only thing we really lease is our copiers,
And the postage.
as far as on our side, but I wasn't thinking, but on that lease,
Yeah.
it's just a nominal amount, but I wasn't thinking about that. So, but at the last minute, please don't kill me, but like.
we've got them all now, like
was
in
the
a
first year.
folder, and we'll get them, we'll consider them for next year moving forward, or anything new that comes in. And the good thing about, like, the first year of implementation, you have to go back and kind of pull in everything that's already there, but now, like, anything that gets accepted is gonna be in the minutes, so we can, like, kind of pull that together on a year-to-year basis a little bit easier. So that's the notes to the financial statements. We have required supplementary information, which GASB requires us to report respective to the budget, and also to the other post-employment benefits, and then also for the net pension plan, the net pension liability. So that's the big packet. The small packet is the single audit. If
No,
you
we don't have the
Yeah, I don't
small
have the
packet.
small.
I haven't given them out yet.
Sorry, that was my bad.
No, I did.
They were in a different
And
box.
Counselor Alamon is here as well.
Here they are.
Give me a chance for a second.
All of mine is here just now, 522. Okay. Yeah, it's for, because we got the ARPA money, we had to, if there were a certain amount, we had to.
Walter had to step out for a second, so.
So you used a term, I think is it qualified?
Yeah, an unmodified opinion.
Unmodified, is
Mhm.
that the same thing in a government?
That's thumbs up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Otherwise, modified would be the term, I guess.
It used to be
It used to be
unqualified.
unqualified.
And then they spent a whole bunch of money and made it unmodified
I
now.
hired some PR company to come up with that.
We like to refer to it as a clean opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
He was talking.
I like your pop socket there.
Oh, thank you.
We love all things Bucky at our house.
Okay. Did she pass out the small?
Yeah. You should, did you not get one?
No, I didn't get one.
Here.
Hey, Melody, Walker needs one of the small ones.
Okay.
You need yours.
Okay.
Single audit.
I wrote notes old school on a legal pad here.
What do you have?
I mean, single
I'm
audit.
the same way.
Does GASB and FASB follow each other?
Sometimes, like, I feel like there's a competition, and because I like governmental better, like, I'm always like, oh, yes, GASB, you know, like anything that FASB does and GASB doesn't, or vice versa, I'm like, GASB rules, you know, and try to get our staff members to be interested in the governmental arena, but, this was one, I'm sorry, I'm a nerd. This is one area where, they did, FASB did a lease implementation standard this year as well. So we had a lot of our for-profit companies, and then also GASB kind of followed suit on it. Okay, so for the small packet, this is the single audit. There's 2 reports in here that belong to BMSS. One of them is a report over internal controls over financial reporting. That's like formerly known as the Yellow Book report, and it basically says we considered the city's internal controls over financial reporting, and we did not have any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses reported here. So then on page 6, that's our report on compliance over major programs. So that's where we take some of the city's federal programs and test them for compliance, and if we have any findings, we report those here. We we did not report anything in there as either. Okay, so on page 9, you'll see the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, and we have a total of $2.8 million in expenditures of federal awards, and a big chunk of that was money for the Coronavirus Relief Act funds, which I think you all knew split 2 different years, and then you recognize the revenue for those when the funds were spent. So the city had expenditures of $1.8 million there. And then the other major program that we tested was the State and Community Highway Safety Grant, which was $972,000. And then, of course, we have the notes that define the single audit. And then we have the financial statement findings. We didn't have any that we reported. The federal award findings and question costs. We had last year, I think all of y'all were still on the finance committee, and if anybody's new, we had some issues with capital assets with Encode and the way that it was processing like construction in progress. It was almost like it was duplicating it, was leaving it in CIP, but also moving it out to different categories. So it took us a little bit longer to finish the audit last year. So the only finding that we had pertaining to the federal awards was that the single audit was submitted to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse past the June 30 deadline, and we have not received any kind of, communication back from them that that it was an issue, but it is something that we have to make a notation for. On the microphone, Ann.
Yes, and you just kept hitting it.
Gosh, I'm so sorry.
It's all good.
People online are probably like, oh my gosh. So.
Just say that anyway. Doesn't matter what you
Yep,
were
you're
saying.
right, you're right.
They were saying
Yep,
that.
they'll blow up Facebook.
Exactly.
Yeah, so, but anyway, yeah, so it's required to be reported. The only implication that we have from an audit standpoint for like a late filing is that you're not considered to be a low-risk auditee anymore. But most of our test work that we do, like we select programs where we're already testing above whatever the, you know, like you can either do 25% if you're low risk or 50% if you're high risk. But like when you've got one program that's 75% and you pick that one, you're already kind of covering that percentage anyway. So no concerns there. And then we have a letter to those charged with governance. We are required to give these out at every audit, or to management. And basically, we're communicating to you that we had the new lease standard for the year. The biggest estimates for the financial statements were the OPEB liability and the net pension liability, because obviously you're using an actuarial study to do that, and those can change from year to year. We didn't have any difficulties performing the audit. The financial team here, Melody, her crew, Robert and his crew, very helpful, very responsive.
You weren't hiding anything, is that what you're telling us?
Not that I know of, and if they were, Robert bought us some Robert bought us some pizza one day, so. Yeah, so anyway, no, we did not have any difficulties. So no corrected or uncorrected misstatements that came to our attention as a result of the audit. Everything that, I mean, we did have a few adjustments that we made that management brought to us that were things that, you know, that they gave to us as part of what they were providing with audit evidence.
That's what I always tell her very obnoxiously. I'm giving this to you and telling you that I know that I need to make it right here, so
Yes,
you can't find me on it.
yeah, this is a PBC entry.
This is, I found it first.
They did, we didn't have any disagreements with management where we said, hey, yeah, we saw that you know, chose this treatment, we disagree, and we never could come to terms on that. The management signed a management representation letter on June 30th saying that they had provided everything to us and that they weren't hiding anything and that all information had been provided to us. And then, to our knowledge, there was no consultation with other accountants, which, you know, back in the day would have been considered opinion shopping. If you got an adverse opinion, you would go find somebody else to give you a different one. And then, of course, we've already talked about the single audit. So this is the letter to those charged with governance, and that's really all I have for y'all. And I'm sorry that this took so long, because I probably shouldn't have written 2 pages. Next time I'll.
No,
that was
this
all
is very
minutes.
thorough.
See, this is
Any
where Jeannie and I
questions?
compete on when we get some extra lunches.
No, I appreciate the work Melody and Robert do to make sure.
Yeah,
everything-
absolutely.
And we appreciate y'all.
Are there any questions? Yeah.
So on page 19, where it talks about the deferred outflows of resources for pensions, that $9 million, is that a sum of 100% of our pension liability that we have, or is it a prorate?
It changes from year to year. So page 19,
Yeah, it's in the long-term liability. Deferred outflows of resources for pensions.
that was the change in the year. Wait, no, I'm sorry.
Deferred outflows.
It ties to page 15, deferred outflows related to pension. So the way that the pension works is retirement system does the actuarial study as of the year before the financial statement date. So it's fiscal year 2021 is when the actuarial valuation is done. But fiscal year 2022, you've already put in $9.1 million more in employer contributions. And so they say, okay, well, go ahead and back those out of your expenses, put them on the balance sheet, and then next year you can put them into expenses and you back off, like, so that you're kind of playing catch up.
Gotcha, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I guess the proper motion would be to accept the 21-22 audit from BNSS.
I would make that motion.
Second. Moved by Counselor Smith, and I think that was Counselor Allemont, I heard.
Thank you.
Got 5 here now.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign. That's 5. We have 5 people here now, so
Okay.
5-0.
Would you please tell Frankie, he was a new graduate that you will love, was extremely sharp from Mississippi, southern Mississippi?
He's from Southern
University of Southern
Mississippi.
Mississippi.
We love Frankie.
And he did an excellent job for a new graduate. I mean, he did an excellent job, period. I cannot believe he's a new graduate.
Hey, he's on a cruise right now, so.
Tell him I gave him kudos. He was
All right.
great to work
Thank
with.
you,
Yes.
Jenny. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, thank y'all.
All right.
Thank you, and if y'all need anything, please reach out.
No, thank you.
Okay, Kale, we're gonna do the next two, 02-07-23, Western Bend contract with Southeastern Seal Coating for College Avenue Stormwater Project. I sent this out as well.
Yeah, this is for a net increase of $6,500 for the contractor. We deducted the $15,000 relocation of the water main, which you guys approved earlier this year. We didn't need to do it. We found a workaround, but we did have to add a manhole and sanitary sewer service relocation. But they basically finished that project. There was a piece of playground equipment that was damaged during construction, and they installed it either last week or.
At one of the houses?
No, at Edgewood Playground.
Oh, back there on the playground,
Yeah, on the
got it, on
playground.
the actual playground.
Yep.
And I have a question, only
Sure.
because there was a neighbor over there, don't ask me why, she's in Ward 3, but she always contacts me. It started leaking again after they finished.
What started leaking?
She's on College, and their driveway, they had a huge, part of that was the huge leak that they were replacing the main to prevent and stop.
So that's Birmingham Waterworks, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, I mean, shouldn't that have, wouldn't the change have fixed that? I mean, what's still leaking? If
No,
it's-
no, no. So this is for the
This is
stormwater
Oh,
project.
this is
This
stormwater,
is
not
stormwater.
not the
No,
Birmingham
yeah.
Waterworks leak. Got it, got it, got it, got it, got it. Okay. Yep,
Send that to Chris.
he's already, he and I have already talked about it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
we
just got
got,
confused.
we got Birmingham Waterworks leaks all
All
over the city. I know
over the place.
that we're reporting that Berkeley's aware of every one of them, right?
Chris has been wonderful. Sorry, I got you.
So this would come out of 02-11-584-135, the ARPA fund.
Okay, that's
Say that
right.
again.
02-11-584-135.
Okay, so the recommendation is to spend additional $6,500
Two.
for the ARPA line item.
So moved.
Second.
Who's that? Mr.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Walker. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign, that's 5-0, that passes. 03-07-23, request permission from mayor to sign a contract with Sane and Associates for PE services for Central Avenue TAP grant.
Yeah, so we've talked about this one several times in here. We finally got the funding agreement back from AlDOT, fully executed funding agreement, and so now the next step is to have the mayor sign the contract with Sane to start actual design work. So survey services and all that. We currently have $100,000, we put $100,000 in this year's budget because we didn't know when we would get that funding agreement back and weren't sure how much we would need to spend. So certainly $100,000 will cover what we're gonna do throughout the remaining of the year. So the full amount from Sane is $136,781, and AlDOT will reimburse $75,200 of that.
AlDOT will reimburse.
75,200.
200, okay.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
I went through their, I guess I'll call it proposal to us, and I understand the way civil engineering works. If you don't like you can't get 3 bids, they don't allow that in the civil engineering world. So if you don't like their bid, you have to reject it. I just noticed there's $21,000 in there for topo, and I thought, God, that seems like a lot for doing the topography for a pretty flat piece of area, but is that beyond what you think it should be?
No, I think that's about right. I mean, so civil engineering are professional services, just like you wouldn't go and get 3 bids from 3 attorneys. You wouldn't do the same with engineers. You couldn't do the same with engineers.
I've heard about it over the years.
Yeah.
I went through straight and trade myself.
All right, so this is really just a request to have the mayor sign the contract.
That's right.
You got the contract.
I do.
This has already been budgeted.
Yeah, and we have $100,000 in the account.
Okay.
Yes. I would make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Walton
I just
makes
need
a
to know.
motion, Mr. Harden seconds the motion.
Andy, go on.
Walton and Harden. All right, any other questions on that? Hearing none, None, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign, that's 5-0, that passes. 040723, request to terminate contract with Iron Mountain and amend budget for disposal of records. This one, I
Thank
believe,
y'all.
is gonna give me heartburn, but,
Not as much as it does
Let's-
me every month, we have to sign
It's
the
gonna give you
invoice.
heartburn to end that contract?
no, just to talk about it. Okay.
Y'all probably didn't get
This
this.
is gonna give you heartburn just
Bo
to
is
talk
here.
about it.
Yeah,
To think
right,
about.
last minute.
Okay. So the request is for $70,000 to remove, destroy, or retain digitally all documentation that is currently being stored at Iron Mountain. This is in addition to what we've already budgeted, correct?
Correct.
For the fiscal year ending.
So how much have we spent fiscal?
This year to
To
date.
date, we're
19,000.
19,600.
Do we have any kind of, are we gonna have to pay them for additional time? Do we have to give them like a period, a notice period?
Yeah, and they try to drag it out,
Yes.
trust me, they keep avoiding Bo every time.
Yeah.
he reaches out for 'em.
And the way it works is every time that you, like, once you send something to them, they'll come back and say, we have 30 days to review it. Then they bounce it back to us, and then they give us 30 days, to contact them. And so now where we're at is if you guys agree to terminate the contract, it comes down to, they'll have to have written, documentation on letterhead from the mayor and from, Robert as well, saying that they want to terminate the contract. And then from there, I don't have a timeline of how long, we ain't got there yet, of how long it'll take to, destroy all the documents. But I would imagine it's not a
Overnight
quick
situation.
a quick process.
Like, what is our, I mean, I know, cause like you said, I mean, it's a lot of stuff. I know, it's a ton of stuff. What is the plan? Are we going, I mean, how are we gonna get it from, cause are y'all gonna just, like, what's the plan?
Right,
Tell us what the plan
right
is.
now, if you look at the
Yeah.
the destruction invoice that I sent you,
Mhm.
this, it says right now, out the door, for them to take care of everything will be $66,696.47. And if you read the fine print down there that they include, that there could be some additional charges based on, things that they could run into upon
All right,
retrieving.
So
it.
at this point, we're not getting anything back from them. We're essentially, they're destroying it all.
Destroying it all, you're right. Yeah, here.
And there's not a need to digitize anything that they have.
These records are old in there. It's nothing of any
So-
We're
value.
digitizing everything that we're required to have that we set up here on site.
And I think employee time should be considered as part of some of this decision, but could we take everything out of there? I know they charge us when we leave and destroy it ourselves and save money, or?
In order to
A bonfire.
Yeah. Right out on the plaza, man. Invite a bunch of people.
basically, and I apologize, I didn't, I have it, it's $53,000 for us to pick it up. But here again, you can't go pick it up all in one day. And if you have to go take trip after trip after trip, that's more time that they have us on the hook to continue to pay
So you
nearly
have
$3,000 a
investigated
month.
This whole thing, and the mayor's shaking his head over there, like, we gotta.
We
get-
vandalized it
we
since
gotta
place
get
from
out of-
Sunday.
yeah, we looked.
Wasn't it like
It's a- it's a
$15.50 a
racket.
box
Just
just
to
to pull
stop
it?
the bleed.
Just to pull the box?
And the
Right there in
the
Columbus.
savings over a year's time is gonna be upwards of $33,000.
It's a racket.
I like that.
That's why I wanted it out.
Okay.
Thank y'all for finally doing this.
Okay, just eliminating the service will save, yeah, 33,500.
Mr. Chair, what was our budget, do you know, off the top of your head for this line item this year? Anybody?
For Iron Mountain.
I don't remember.
But it was probably contractual services.
Yeah, I was about to say it's a contract.
Our budget's
Yeah, what we budget for Iron Mountain.
Tell them what we pay on average, $3,300 a month for one.
Yeah, yeah.
and-
So roughly,
to pay.
So this,
Yeah, it will,
37,000.
it'll pay itself back.
It's come down from prior years because when the police moved into the new building, they spent about $18,000 destroying a lot of items in 21. And in 20, they spent about 16,000 destroying some items. So our monthly cost has come down, but it's still astronomical for
But aren't
what's
we,
there.
wouldn't we be just amending that line item by 33,000?
Well, we've already spent,
70 still.
to date,
Oh, 19.
we've spent like, yeah, right at 19 to date.
So,
Okay, and then 70
what is
would be 89.
this? 13 minus 70 is,
So
57,000.
56,600, right? Is that right? No.
and not only do they provide the storage and management of our off-site documents, but they also provide a service where they come here and pick up shred bins. And we will eliminate those as well. We've got a commercial shredder that we've put in. In May, we purchased a commercial shredder. We shred all of our own documents now through the paperless initiative that we've started back in April. And then we take those shredded documents, the bags, and the night crew takes it out for us with no additional charge. We're, the cleaning service that we're already being provided.
Yeah.
They basically take care of it for us. So,
Okay.
All right, so
So-
are we making a motion to approve the money, or are we making a motion for the mayor to agree to end the contract with them? Or both?
We can't end the contract though without having a motion for the budget amendment.
Yeah, I think,
Right.
yeah, we can do it all
In one
motion, yeah.
Okay. Then I would make a motion to terminate the contract with Iron Mountain and make the budget amendment to take care of those final destruction of items.
Which is up to 70,000.
Yeah.
Up to 70,000.
I feel like they're gonna find a way to make it.
Okay, second, Counselor Alamon. And then, so that, it looks like, it'll be a budget amendment about 60 or so. But, I think this is, in the end, this is gonna save us a lot of
We're
money
just getting a
and
lot of money
heartache and time.
Yeah,
But you're letting the
stuff we
budget
don't even
amendment be
need.
up to 70,000
Up
if
to
we need, is what you're
70.
saying, okay?
Spending $33,000 a year on documents we don't need.
Well, and at one point, weren't there like Christmas decorations?
There still
and
are there.
stuff?
We haven't
Yeah.
gotten them out yet.
There's like boxes of just crap that we shouldn't be paying to house.
And they're like AP invoices from like 1990.
it's yeah.
Okay,
We don't need those.
motion seconded.
Never know.
Any other questions on this? Thank you for the report. All in favor
Thank you,
say
Bev.
aye.
Thank you, Bev.
Aye.
All opposed
Thank you
with
for
the
doing
same
that.
sign. 5-0. Okay, and I just want to start the discussion. I know we have a lot of other business tonight, but 2006-23, let's go back to that. What I was going to ask is if Counselor Alamon and President Wyatt would give us kind of, after, you were on this committee, I've read the report, I have my own opinions, but I wanted to get, since you went through, the whole process, what is your thought at this point in terms of what your recommendation would be, or what you see really the best way to move forward after you have gone through all this?
Sure, I'd be happy to. When we came together as a committee, we were tasked with exploring 3 different options from 3 different cities that we thought would potentially benefit the city of Homewood. We were also told to not make a recommendation explicitly, right? Because we really wanted to provide everyone an opportunity to review the documents themselves, hear their presentation, so that we all could come to a conclusion as to which way would be the best way for the city of Homewood. Having said all that, though, if you ask me as a person,
Yes,
right,
yes.
as to which option seems to be the best, I think that the opportunity to bring forth a city manager and go through a referendum in which the city has buy-in and is given the opportunity to choose a city manager, and then that would provide us clear parameters and structure by which that person can be successful, right? So that would be my recommendation, right, that we would pursue the model that is in Vestavia.
Okay.
And so I think that is the strongest model. It gives you the clearest parameters, right? I think the Mountain Brook model, while successful for their city, allows for some gray that I feel uncomfortable with in terms of dynamics between the mayor and the city manager. The Hoover model provides a city administrator model, right, but doesn't necessarily explicitly lay out what those roles are, and those can be changed over time. I think this model, the Vestavia model, provides.
I think we saw how that worked out.
Yeah, he's gone.
And so,
Yeah.
having said that, the Vestavia model, I think, provides the clearest structure, and it gives us the most confidence to move forward, and it gives us the tools necessary to be successful in doing so.
Thank you, thank you. Okay. So I would agree. I think that the benefits of moving to a city manager, first of all, I think our city can benefit from a city manager. I think we hop over that hurdle pretty quickly. And then in looking at the options, you know, one of the main benefits that we found in looking through it was continuity between administrations. And so to me, the Hoover model of the city administrator doesn't give you that, because you're still leaving a mayor in charge of the executive. And that's fine if you got a full-time mayor and you got a big city. We found that the cities that used that, utilized it well, tended to be bigger cities where the other two models don't work quite as well. For our city, and what I've tried to do, as well as everyone else in the committee, is trying to look at it from the point of view of Homewood and what would benefit Homewood, and not just what happens to be a good system. So I didn't particularly like the Hoover model for our city. I don't think it's a good fit. In looking at the Mountain Brook and Vestavia models, I agree with Councilor Alman. Mountain Brook works really well for Mountain Brook. They are a unique situation because they created this before the statutory scheme was in place, because they have sort of institutionalized it over the course of decades. It works for them. If you haven't gone through that process, it doesn't work real well, because you don't have the clear lines of duties and delineation between duties, as Councilor Alman noted. So, you know, to me, quite frankly, going into it, I was very interested in finding out about the Mountain Brook model, and really kind of was leaning that way without a lot of knowledge. It was pretty clear to me early on, quite frankly, even in talking to Sam Cast, who said, you know, this is a potential problem that's out there, where the mayor could show up at any point and say, you know what, you're gone, I'm doing something different, I don't like what you're doing, I'm gonna.
Well, and I mean, that's the thing, I mean, they're fortunate because they have Sam.
Correct.
But if Sam decided to retire and a new mayor comes in, that whole system could change
And it
quickly.
works because the entire citizenry of Mountain Brook understands what the roles are, right?
Sure.
So if anyone tries to get outside of their lane, they're gonna create a problem. Since that time, the legislature's put in a statutory scheme that outlines these roles very well if you follow the Vestavia model. To me, that's what makes sense. You have clear roles. Mayor has a defined role, even though it's on council. The city manager has a defined role in terms of being the executive. Everyone understands exactly who does what. And so to me, that offers Homewood the greatest benefit moving forward. Again, with our size, our city, with our complexity, I think it's clear that we need a city manager, and I think it's also clear that we want a city manager that is in that role, as Vestavia is in the statutory scheme, what we've referred to as the Vestavia model, rather than something with a part-time mayor that oversees that person. I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense.
If, you know, my hope is that if we do this, we do it in such a way that we are following a very specific laid out structure. And in this case, with the Vestavia model, there is a very specific laid out structure. You have to do step number 1, step number 2, step number 3. And I think that's the way to make it the most clear, clean, and functioning. And I mean, and it brings somebody in, that way you bring somebody in not to something that they're not sure is gonna be long lasting.
I think you get a better talent pool that way, because I think that person knows their clearly defined roles, knows what they're doing and what they're not doing. I think, you know, as Councilor Alman said, you also are forced to do a referendum, so you get public buy-in, one way or the other, it either passes or it doesn't, about how the city should move forward. So there are a lot of benefits to doing that model in my mind versus the other two. It really is. I found it to be much clearer than I thought it was going to be after doing
And
research.
and we had this with the committee of the whole, so, I mean, I'm welcome to hear everyone's, thoughts on it at this point. We might have totally conflicting thoughts here, but anyone here at the table have opinions?
Yeah, well, I just had another question about, what guidelines were laid out in that model that the state was, the first one, the one we're thinking about. So in one set of information, I was thinking it said there would be a mayor, one other council member at large, and 3 counselors by ward. Is it that specific, or, and then we talked later about the way other ward situations.
Sure.
Do we get to decide that, or is that specified?
So the statute limits the available options. So there are a few different ways to do it, and we would need to, I would say that's sort of the next step, is if we decide that's the route we want to go, the next step is sort of, okay, well, what's it going to look like within these options?
Okay.
And which way is the best in terms of, it will require some kind of redistricting. The numbers just don't work out right to match up what we have to those current options.
But will there be 5, does this one dictate 5 council members, one being the mayor?
That is one of the options,
Okay.
yes. The mayor will be on council, that part is decided. In
Okay.
terms of the districts, there is a little bit, and I mean a little bit, of play in terms of what can happen. There are lots of different ways to look at it. One of the things that, to me, if we go this route, that we would need to look at is, how many people are we affecting by what we change? And how much unfamiliarity are we gonna have created by the change? Because it's gonna be a lot, even if we just do the minimum amount. And so to me, that's one of the most important factors is, within the statute, looking at the option that has the least amount of change for our residents.
And when you were talking about the consistency with the first model versus the Mountain Brook model, is that because of who the administrator, the city manager reports to?
It is. So it's a little bit of that and something else. So the city manager in that situation reports to the entire council as opposed to a single individual.
Mm-hmm.
That means making a change on a whim more difficult. I don't have any doubt that some future council could make a change to the personnel in that position if there's a problem. What I worry more about is a single person sort of on a whim saying, hey, I didn't like what you did here on this issue, and so I'm gonna get rid of you. And/or you were the last mayor's guy, and now that I'm elected, I'm gonna change it to my guy. That's what concerns me, as opposed to a city manager. One of the primary benefits of a city manager is that person becomes such a good, and Vestavia and Mountain Brook are very good models of this. They become such a good manager of the city and so familiar with the city that the city keeps running on seamlessly while the council comes in and out, depending on the will of the voters, to come up with whatever policy issues and larger issues the city needs to deal with, while the city manager maintains a consistency within the day-to-day operations. It doesn't change from administration to administration.
And I will say from a
Just with
financial.
policy or strategy or.
Sure.
And I will say from like a financial perspective, since we look at all the invoices for the city, one of the things that drives me crazy, and I know it drives Carlos crazy, it drives all of us crazy. When we have,
Yeah.
7 different pest control
Efficiencies
companies.
or not.
Yeah, no, there's no centralized purchasing or centralized contracting, and so that kind of thing, going through that one person and making sure that that person was in charge of saying, no, we're not gonna have 7 different contracts with pest control people, we're just gonna have one and we're gonna get a better deal. Those kind of things are gonna eliminate inefficiency and also cost.
I also want to bring up, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but if we do this and we shift to a model, whichever number of seats we choose for wards, it's a single seat per ward.
Right.
And
Yes.
so we would, in
Correct.
effect, be shrinking council.
Yes.
Right, so I think that's an important thing to lift up, that this is not, I think all of us here understand if we decide to do this, we're all basically saying half of us will not be here potentially.
Yeah, well, because,
And so I think that we need to lift
yeah.
that up and say, this is something that we think that is for
Good.
the good of the city of Homewood.
Correct.
Yeah, no, we're
This is not-
absolutely,
This isn't actually in anyone's
Right.
self-interest in terms of preserving their seat on council.
No.
It's something that, but it
It's
is
good-
good
it's
for
the right
Homewood
thing.
and is, it will improve city government.
and I
But I
think
think that's
it's,
an excellent point.
and also important to note, I think, because I heard from a couple of people after we had the presentation originally, and we talked about the fact that there might have to be some redistricting or some changing of the ward lines and that kind of thing. People were like, all of a sudden, focused on the school thing, were like, this has nothing to do with the school thing.
Yeah, another good point. The nothing to do
Completely
with school
different.
lines, it doesn't even have anything to do with the Board of Education representative lines.
Right.
The Board of Education comes up with those. They have control over that. Nothing that we do with this will
Has
change
anything to do
that.
with that.
Quite frankly, those lines, it's pretty small, but those lines don't automatically follow. Even today, there's a slight difference
Yeah.
between the ward lines for the board and
And
the
the
ward
school.
lines for the city.
Yeah.
So those will not change.
Yeah.
Districting for elementary schools will not, we
Doesn't
couldn't do that if we wanted to.
No, it has
That's
nothing
the
to do with
board's-
us, yeah.
That is the board's authority to do that or not do that. So nothing would change about the way the Board of Education operates or the elementary schools operate, unless the Board of Education decides to do it for some reason. But we are not doing anything that affects that in any way.
Okay, I think Counselor Andrews was next.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think, it is excellent to hear from the voters and for the voters to dictate the direction that we take. I mean, for them to be able to say at the ballot box, we believe in this, yes, you know, or we reject this like Madison did, no. Either way,
Sure.
we will know, we will know. It won't be, I heard from a few people, or I didn't hear anything from anybody until we did it, now everybody hates it. I mean, now it's gonna be, we as the city can go to the ballot and decide.
And I mean, certainly during the election, if people's comments that they made to us during the election and the questions we received, one would assume, that the citizens did want this. They certainly said they wanted it.
The vocal ones did,
Yeah,
anyway.
but I mean, that hopefully, like you said, I mean, that makes it very clear delineation. It's not just a decision we made, it's a decision that the citizens made. And
Okay. Anyone else have comments? Okay, then, that's very helpful.
Can I make a suggestion about how we move forward?
Yes, that was the next discussion.
So what I would suggest, if everyone's comfortable with it, is that, you know, I haven't heard, people may still be digesting this, and that's fine if they are, but you know, I haven't heard a whole lot of dissent to this model. And so I would suggest that we give certainly at least 2 more weeks or however long it is to sort of decide, is that the model we're going with? Because it sounds to me like that's where everyone's leaning. But I don't want to rush anybody. I want this process to take whatever time it needs to take. But if we can get to that point sometime in the next 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it is, then I would say let's get that decision sort of made in the sense of, okay, now we've decided which model we like the best. Now let's move forward with what are the considerations that go along with that model. The redistricting, all of those sorts of things to talk about that so we can flesh that out before we make a final recommendation and move forward with any kind of referendum.
question,
Mhm.
like speaking of timing, because obviously if this happens, it would be something that would need to happen before the election in 2025 for
Correct.
council. So how far in advance of the election would we need to do the referendum to determine, because our plan would be that we would wanna start search and
Before
hiring
the
someone
election.
before the election, so that they're not coming into a blind
2024,
selection
yeah.
with a bunch of people that have
I'd hate
not
to
been on
leave,
campus.
just for the sake of argument, 5 new counselors
Sure.
sitting there without a city manager and taking a year to find them and rushing and all of that stuff.
Right.
So my preference would be that we hold the referendum sometime in the first quarter of 2024. So if that would allow us the rest of 2024 or as long as it took, but potentially the rest of 2024 to do a search, find someone good, hire that person, get them in, let them get indoctrinated into Homewood and vice versa, and then in November of 25, the new council will take its seat and hit the ground running with that person. And that's why I say if we really are coalescing around an option already, I think it's good to go ahead and do that. So if we can do that in August, then we can move forward with, quite frankly, what I think are the harder discussions about redistricting and things of that nature, and how many seats and things like that. I'm not sure those are going to be all that difficult either, but they're probably harder. They're less obvious than the model.
I have a question on process. Are we going to be, like, let's, for example, this part of the decision-making process, are we going to, in committee, vote to make a certain pieces of it, and then we'll vote on another piece of it, and vote, or how are we going to?
I would propose that we not do it in pieces for this reason. There's something that might come up in the discussion of the considerations that makes us sort of change course, right? Hey, we didn't like what we've got to do here, and so now we're gonna switch to this other model, or we've decided we don't want to do anything. So I'd hate to choose a model before we did that. So what I would suggest is that we sort of informally, without, decide this is the model we want to take an in-depth look at. And if we can all sort of agree on that, then go through those considerations and all of that stuff, and then let the committee vote. Assuming that we get to a point where everyone's comfortable, get to a point where the committee can vote that out to full council, and then have a vote there.
I just wanted to make sure that.
Yeah.
We're going to proceed.
And Mayor, did you want to add anything, or are you good? I mean, you've led this effort, so.
No, I mean, we've certainly been discussing this for quite some time, and the study group did an amazing job bringing all of the options to you guys. I would agree with Councilor Alomar and President Wyatt in the fact that I do believe the stadium model is probably the best one that's best suited for the city. I think there are still some questions that we have to go through, some answers that we have to find on the ideas of redistricting and how many seats and things like that. So that'll take time for you guys to go through. But I know that we can. I have faith that you guys can get it done in the time frame that we know we need to, because we do want to have this in place before we start really worrying about the next election in 25. We specifically for the consistency part for the. It's okay, Ron. You're gonna be okay. Just for the consistency piece of it, so that we know that by the time, whether any of us are here in 25, we know that we've got, the right structure in place.
Right. Yep. Okay, great. Good discussion, so be prepared, that's your assignment.
Can I just say one
next
second
time.
for I just thought what Councilor Smith was saying, and not taking away from all but a lot of the things on because we've been working towards central purchasing the whole time I've been here, so some of that stuff that with the mayor we're implementing, I just wanted people to know that, the residents that
Yeah,
we're
but I mean,
looking at.
I will say, without a person being able to devote all their time to that, because y'all don't have time to devote all your time to that.
We've actually, we have been implementing.
Yeah.
Office supplies and other things that we're gonna bring even more with packing stuff to try to do that and not just waiting on, like, I just don't wanna list, I guess, cause I've been here so long ago, I don't wanna say, here's a list of all things you need to do, but that's something that we've known for a while that we're actually trying to do is where we can with the staff in place we have now.
Yeah, but I mean, I think having that person who's.
And I wouldn't take it away from that, I was just saying.
Just make it happen.
Let Pat pass those down.
Okay.
I promise I
It's a
would.
big night.
All
kinds of things to talk about.
Yeah, I don't think this is an
We're
item.
not talking about it, I'm just
You're
handing
just
them
handing it out, okay, I was gonna say, is this on the agenda?
No, it's not.
Okay, is there any other items that we need to take? We're not.
They get ready during budget though.
Okay, hearing nothing else, and so we're gonna carry over 2006, 23, so we'll carry that over until next time. Hearing no other business, we're adjourned.